Movement is my friend. I want to start by sharing a really profound aha moment I had on Facebook a few years ago. And yes, you can have profound aha moments on Facebook. I've had a few. There was a quote going around at the time that read something like this: if you could tell your younger self something, what would it be? Easy. I sat up and I leaned forward and I literally pounded out, they were wrong. I had goosebumps and my heart was pounding, and it took me a little while to absorb what had just happened. But this was the first moment in my life that I recognized how far I'd come in my journey to self-acceptance. I was born in the Midwest in the 50s to a conservative minister in a tiny town in the Midwest. Everybody's roles were clearly laid out, especially women and children. So when my parents welcomed home this beautiful blonde girl, it was with the thoughts of sugar and spice and everything nice. Instead, they didn't even get puppy dog tails. I literally was intense. My mind raced. I was so curious. I was considered nosy. I couldn't sit still. I never finished a project. But probably worst of all was that I had this intense emotional radar. I could feel my parents' disappointment, and I could feel the waves of disapproval coming from across the room. The number of times I heard, and I'm sure some of you have too, "Oh, Marilyn, if you could only just." And what followed was a list of my traits that needed to be carved off and changed so that I would fit in. And the promise was that I would be loved and I would be happy. Everybody around me seemed to be towing the line and managing. So what was wrong with me? And my assumption as a child was simply that I was broken, or everybody else had a missing ingredient. I had an ingredient that I was personally missing. This really didn't change in high school either. My friends around me were having the high school experience happily, and I was overwhelmed with thoughts of the Vietnam War, with poverty, and with those I could feel around me who were truly suffering. So I decided to step back and keep people at arm's length, and I put a wall up because I truly believed that if they saw behind to the me inside, they wouldn't like me. So the first change came when I met my husband, and this always brings tears to my eyes because he was the first one that loved me. He saw me and loved me just the way I was. And that opened that little crack to a future that could have been different. It would be 2 decades later before the next change came. And surprisingly, it came by answering a Craigslist ad from a New York magazine looking for submissions. I was so surprised when 2 of my ideas were accepted. And no one was more surprised than me when a year and a half later, I found myself editor and co-owner of a fashion magazine. It didn't matter that my clothes came from Zellers. It didn't matter that I knew absolutely nothing about fashion and that my husband cut my hair and that I had no writing credentials, because it was during my first interview that my passion hit me between the eyes. I loved interviewing. I loved hearing people's stories. And more than that, I found all those little things that people told me were wrong with me were actually my talents and made me good at it. So I threw all my fear aside. I loved interviewing so much that I faced my fears and I stepped back out into this public spotlight where all my mistakes would be seen and I could be criticized. And it turns out that interviewing was actually the best therapy I could have chosen. 150 interviews, I sat there, and person after person told me how they lived a life of their choosing and how they defined success in a way that made them happy. And they did it, and this is what hit me so hard. They did it without apology. Their stories gave me the courage to go home and decide the life I wanted to live and the path I wanted to live, and to do it without apology. That doesn't mean there aren't times that I'm still nervous in public. It simply means that I know who I am. My passion also led me to my purpose, and my purpose is simply to give wings to the stories of others and to try to promote diversity on a global scale, way down at the ground level, one person at a time. I try to help people recognize they're exactly who they're meant to be and accept themselves, because you cannot offer others what you don't give yourself. It was about this time that I heard a Zen chaplain share the concept of Ujamaa. Ujamaa is a day in Kwanzaa, and it's about cooperative economics. We come together as a village to raise each other up equally with no one left behind. That hit a profound chord for me. I thought about it for a bit, and I went home and decided that I would actively and purposely choose the people in my life, both personally and professionally, that I would look for those relationships that felt equally supportive, where we had a common goal, and where I felt we could work together to build our mutual success without competition. A really interesting thing happened around this time. As I got more comfortable in my own skin, people around me started acting truly odd. They were changing. And what I discovered is when you think you're broken, you attract people around you who also think you're broken. They reflect it back. And when you get comfortable in your skin and live your life without apology, you attract people around you that also embrace who you are in your journey. I personally know how very hard this journey could be. If you're struggling with self-acceptance, it's not easy. If you grew up being told you're broken, it's not easy. But I am here to tell you, and this is what I really want to leave you with. There are no mistakes. You are perfect the way you are. You're exactly who you are meant to be. You have a purpose only you can fulfill. So give yourself a break. Give yourself the time that you need to get there. And simply get up each morning and try to face your day by being really, really present in that moment. Make your heart really wide open to the opportunities around you. And I want you to take it very simply, one breath, one moment, and one step at a time. Thank you.